Hello and welcome to Rotary in Action. I'm your host, Marty Peters. I hope that today you're going to get an opportunity to see the creative minds of men and women that are serving in Rotary around the world. This is an opportunity for you to see the crazy things that can happen when people dream, when people dare to step outside those 9 dots to make a new box. And what we're going to see this afternoon or today is a remarkable story about a small little country halfway around the world called Malawi. So when we come back, get ready to meet some remarkable men that have taken time out of their lives to make a difference, literally 13 time zones around the other side of the globe. We'll be right back. Hello again and welcome back. It's a privilege to have these two gentlemen with me today. The first gentleman, Mr. Larry Scott, who is one of the leaders of Rotary in our part of the world. And Larry has been a naval aviator and all kinds of great things in his life. Well, more about that in a minute. And next to Larry is Dick Stevens. And Dick has been president of his club and very, very involved in a variety of committees in our part of the world, our region. Larry, I want to throw this question off to you. How in God's green earth did the country of Malawi even show up on the radar screen?
Well, it actually was very simple. A gentleman by the name of Joe Serra, a doctor, and a friend was over in Malawi treating the people who were called the crawlers. These were people afflicted with polio who crawled 200 to 300 miles to receive treatment. He went there as a Rotary volunteer and came back with his message. And it really had to touch your heart. There was not a dry eye in the place. He was followed by another surgeon named Bill McDade, affectionately known over there as the Boss Man, who also served as a Rotary volunteer and came back and says, we need to help these people. And so with Bill's leadership at that time, we put together a contingent of people and raised funds to buy orthopedic equipment to take back over to Malawi and to personally deliver it. And Dick and I were fortunate enough to be among that group. And we went back and spent those days and nights in Malawi actually working with the people, delivering the equipment specifically to the people in need. And while we were there, it was obvious this was a country that needed our help. I mean, I've been all over the world in my military and political times, and I can tell you that of all the countries I have been to, this one has more needs than we could ever imagine. And so at that point, we had a dream and decided to carry it through.
And Dick, when you went on this trip, what was your first reaction once you got over there?
You know, it's interesting, Marty. I've done a lot of traveling like Larry, and I've been in a lot of third world countries. And it was very apparent that there was a tremendous need for everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, from sewage to streets to education. You know, there are just a lot of needs there that are very apparent. And one of the nice things about this program is that because Bill McDade had been there and he had made contact with a couple of orthopedic surgeons who were in the country, they could kind of make a list for him of the specific items that they felt would be needed. So that as we were looking for the things that we could bring, we were able to kind of really zero in on exactly what they needed, you know, and each one of the clinics, the 35 clinics that we made up boxes for, got the same stuff that these orthopedic surgeons thought we needed to have.
So it was sort of like bottom up. What they wanted is what you brought, rather than some secondhand rejects that weren't being used in our country that may not have worked over there.
Absolutely. And even to the point that they used things, because they don't have electrical supplies that are very dependable, some of the things we brought were things that could be hand operated, so that if there wasn't electricity, that they would be able to operate without electricity. And, you know, those are the kind of things that we just don't think about.
Yeah, we don't think. I've always been remarking to our viewers over these many shows, Rotary is bottoms up. And it's sort of these crazy ideas that start with one person that has a dream, and the next thing you know, he shares it with his own buddies, men and women in his own Rotary Club, and the next thing you know, other clubs wind up getting it. And I think this is a classic case where it might have started with Bill, but now the baton has been passed, from what I gathered, to you and other people in our own area that are so active and so passionate. What I'd like to do, if we have a moment, is let's look at this film, and I'd like to have you sort of comment on the crazy stuff that is going on in this movie, and sort of bring it. Here we are. Point out where Malawi is, first of all.
Well, you can see Malawi there. It's landlocked, but it's also the one country when you see these nice little freshwater tropical fish. They all come out of Lake Malawi, which is about 400 miles long, and just a very beautiful region, as you can see from these. Very rural all the way through. People are dependent upon the land. And
looks like
Georgia,
like red Georgia clay there.
Yeah, well, here's one of the little villages. They just pop up out of nowhere as you're going through the sign. This is a roadside area contiguous to a village where they sell everything from the chicken and the goats that you'll see cooking there. Dick didn't want to have those for lunch that day. But the gentleman you see in that was walking down that alleyway. You'll see where he had his shirt made. Because they made it right there for him, I think for about 25 cents. And these young men were trying to serve us our lunch. That's exactly where they made the shirt, right there. 25 cents, and it was a good job, by the way. And they sell everything from fish to corn to clothing. They fix things. There's no waste in this country. Everything is used, everything.
Now, what's this here? This is a hospital, right?
This is one of the 35 clinics that we visited while we were there. And basically, the country of Malawi has 11 million people, and they have 35 public health clinics throughout the country to service those 11 million people.
Wow.
And as far as orthopedists are concerned, there's only one native Malawian orthopedist in the whole country, and there are 2 British doctors that are there so servicing the needs, but the needs so outstrip, the ability to provide. You can see from these pictures, one of the things that, the hospitals don't have, the people are taken care of by their own families. So the hospitals are built so that the families can camp outside and bring the food and the services to their family members, because there's no facility to do that otherwise. And here you can see them waiting in line, it looks like, to get in, to get services. I mean, it's a situation that just takes an incredible amount of time for anybody to get any kind of help. And the help is fairly rudimentary.
It looks as though there are a lot of people just standing around in the courtyard. Is that the families that are just there?
Well, no, there's 2 things you see happening there. Normally at these hospital clinics, in the morning there'll be anywhere from 400 to 500 people lined up to seek some type of service. If you're injured in Malawi, the chances are that you probably will not make it to the hospital except in probably 2 to 3 days and maybe longer. So you'll live with that injury for quite some time. And even after you arrive and the clinical officers review your case to see who can get in or not, if there is a bed available, and that's not always the case, then you are placed between the beds that are available just on the floor until one comes up. It's very primitive. If you have a broken bone, for example, in your leg, they use the old traction method. They break it back, put it in place, put pins through it, run some strings down the pin to the end of the bed, and lock it onto some bricks or rocks or whatever other kind of weights that they have. And then these people will be in that bed from 4 to 6 months while they heal. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to walk very well after that. And then their families come in to handle. This is a schoolyard, by the way.
Yeah.
Right there, those were the kids that were in school. Yeah, I remember being mobbed by them.
Yeah, you saw there in the video that we were passing out some of the things we brought. Most of us brought things: pens, pencils, soft toys, and wherever we were, that we were giving things out, we were just mobbed. And when we went to that school, there was 2 or 3 teachers teaching underneath a tree. The schoolroom was basically pretty well ruined, but 2 or 3 people teaching these 200 or 300 students, and without books and maybe a blackboard if you're lucky. I mean, it's a really tough situation. We don't really realize what we have in this country and how lucky we are.
How blessed we are. In Rotary, I've always felt that not only is it bottoms up, but I think the compassion that we get is contagious. I know that when somebody comes up with an idea like this, everybody joins around and runs with it, and I know that you two are just exemplifying what's going on all over the Rotary world, whether it's in the United States or in Japan or any part of this planet. What I'd like to do now is to break for a quick, we'll be right back in a couple of seconds. I want to share one thing with you when we do come back. Stay with us, please.
This is an electric cast cutter, which is used for cutting plaster of Paris casts from the patients. It is enormously important here because it saves a lot of time. To have to cut it with manual shears is both uncomfortable for the patient and takes probably 3 or 4 times as long as cutting it with one of these. So this will be extremely useful in the facility you see here, the plaster room.
What do you use now, Steve, to cut off casts?
At the moment, do we have can you show us one of the manual shears that we have? This is the kind of thing we're using at the moment. It's blunt, it takes a long time, it's very uncomfortable for the patients. I say using the electric cast cutter will save vast amounts of time for the Malawian clinical staff working in this plaster room. In summary, we've got a very important, very useful items of equipment here. Equipment that we desperately need, which we don't have, which will make an enormous difference to the treatment of our orthopaedic patients here in Malawi. We do get donations from other countries, but very often this equipment is second-hand and broken. What I think that the great strength of this donation is exactly appropriate to our needs. Our cases here are treated with low technology, using the things you see, but we do need this equipment in order to fulfill that task. And I know that myself and Mr. Kafodia will find this equipment extremely useful, and it will treat many patients here, and not only in Lilongwe Central Hospital, but the donations you're giving throughout the country are really a very invaluable resource for which we're extremely thankful. Thank you.
Welcome back. I know Dr. Mannion's tape just then really ties into that specific nature of how Rotary can fill those specific gaps. And Larry, I wanted to ask you, now, what's next with this specific need? What are these wheelchairs all about?
Well, what we found over there, that the need for the wheelchairs, everybody in that country has to contribute to survive. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an ongoing process daily as to just how to eat. And so if you're not able to be mobile, to get around, you're not a contributor. You're not going to eat as much. Since most people over there only eat 2 meals a day, that means you're down to 1, maybe every other day. The need was overwhelming. So we teamed up with the Wheelchair Foundation, run by a gentleman by the name of Ken Baring, a very generous, warm-hearted individual. And through that program, we are able to provide wheelchairs that are designed to last for 10 years in these developing countries under the most arduous of conditions. The chairs are made in sizing so that we can fit either children or young adults or full-blown adults. Actually, the people in Malawi are of a smaller stature just because they don't get to eat a lot. Yeah. So we started off with a dream to get some wheelchairs over there. It's such a tremendous program because it does more than just provide hope. It actually gives these individuals life. And until you've been engaged in putting a person in a chair, and all of a sudden they realize that they can go from one side of the room to the other, from one part of their village to the other, something they've never done in their life, maybe 18 or 19 years old. Their entire world opens up. They become alive all over again. And with Rotarians, I think with all of us, and I've been in Rotary for a good number of years, with the gray hair and all, is the fact that until you really see what tremendous good you can do through such a simple act, then you really grasp what it means to be a Rotarian. It's not just a title. It's an obligation. It's something you really understand. You need to be part of that service above self.
Dick, I was going to ask, the pictures of those wheelchairs too, those tires aren't little skinny wheelchair tires.
In a third world country, you don't have roads and sidewalks.
Right.
So that, they're designed to be able to go over rough terrain, kind of like a dirt bike or something. They're kind of a knobby tire, and you can, and so it can take an uneven terrain. It can go on a non-sidewalk, because there aren't any sidewalks anyway. And the other thing that's really important is that Malawi is a country where the average annual income is about $85. Now, it's agrarian, as Larry pointed out earlier, but these wheelchairs cost us $150 each, of which we're contributing $75 for each wheelchair, and the Wheelchair Foundation.
When you say we, that's an individual Rotarian or a friend of a Rotarian.
Absolutely.
Can come up with what, $75?
$75.
And then the Wheelchair Foundation doubles that.
Right.
And that's the whole cost for the wheelchair.
Yes.
Delivered?
Yes, it's amazing. You know, when you consider the fact that this gives somebody really an opportunity to live, I mean, you know, it's one of those situations where you rarely have an opportunity to have an impact on someone's life, and for such a small amount of money, you know, it's a tremendous privilege to be able to do that.
I want to make sure I'm clear on this, though, that this is not a Rotary International project. This is a wheelchair foundation that you, Larry, and other people have found out about that wants to do this dream, and our Rotary connections have helped create this dream, making it a reality. Is that sort of the...
We partnered with them. Rotary International
that's
recognizes the Wheelchair Foundation, and we have partnered with them, and we have Rotarians that help us on that end of the spectrum to help us with the delivery of these particular chairs. So it's a great project. It's a win-win situation for everybody. And the thing that we are doing is that we're personally, Dick and I and others, are going back to Malawi once again, and we will actually deliver these chairs to the specific individuals.
You know, I'm thinking of something. This is sort of time dated. Do you think this will continue in other parts of the world with other Rotary clubs and other regions doing this for the next 5 or 10 more years? It sounds like the need is almost infinite.
Well, the need is, you always have people that are being crippled or injured. There are still many people that are suffering from polio and do not have any mobility. They need to be put into a chair. There are still children born throughout the world deformed that will not walk, so they're going to be put into a chair, and people become injured in their lives and now need a wheelchair. And just as an example, I was talking to a club the other day, and in the audience was a gentleman who was a quadriplegic in a wheelchair. And he had heard about our project to provide chairs. And he made it a point to be there because he knew I was going to be there talking on behalf of the wheelchairs. And while I was there, he said, "And here's my check, I want to buy 2 of these."
Oh, bless his
Well,
heart.
it brought the crowd to their feet, I can assure you. And I think a lot of Rotarians in that room became Rotarians at that time.
Boy, I tell you. Let's show a film and let's just sort of look at this and talk over it, because I think this was sort of highlighting this whole wheelchair project.
Rotary International, serving people from all walks of life who are less fortunate. Rotary helps people to see. Rotary helps people who are hungry. Rotary helps homeless people, people who are sick.
Because wherever Rotary is, there is less disease, there is less hunger, there is less thirst, there is less want, there is more hope, there is more life, and there is more peace.
People worldwide know that when Rotary gets involved, help is on the way. And now, the men and women of Rotary are helping people who lack mobility. They are sharing the power of their giving presence with the Wheelchair Foundation. In June of 2000, philanthropist Ken Behring established the Wheelchair Foundation with the sole purpose of providing free wheelchairs to the millions of people throughout our world who cannot afford to buy one. Since then, the Wheelchair Foundation has distributed 50,000 wheelchairs in 90 countries worldwide. One of the keys to the success of the Wheelchair Foundation has been in their partnerships.
We have a wonderful relationship with Ken Behring and the Wheelchair Foundation. My job with Rotary is to put together contributions from the United States and, in fact, all over the world. Those contributions are matched by the Wheelchair Foundation so that we can send containers of wheelchairs to people in need in virtually every country around the world.
To date, Rotary International and the Wheelchair Foundation have combined their generous efforts to distribute over 10,000 wheelchairs to those in need in 27 countries. When forces combine for the purest of causes, there is nothing that can stop the flow of good works. The Wheelchair Foundation thanks Rotarians for their generous support in providing mobility to those in need throughout the world.
Gracias, Club Rotario.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Welcome back, and I want to follow up with a question, Dick, because I know you're chomping at the bit. What about the other half of this equation with those folks that are in Malawi? How did those Rotarians react, and what are they doing right now?
Well, I think that was one of the most impressive things to me, Marty, when we went to Malawi, was the involvement of the local Malawians in the clubs that were there. We went to a couple of clubs, particularly a club in Lilongwe, which is the capital, and there were about 40 members of that club. And they were represented ethnic diversity in terms of Africans and Indians and whites and men and women. The president of their club was a woman, and they entertained us. But more than that, they took us to the hospitals. One of the members was a member of the World Health Organization, and he joined us in many of our visits to the public health clinics. But the involvement of those Rotarians and the amount of care that they had, they'd started a hospital for AIDS victims, children of AIDS victims, and Malawi has a terrible problem with that. But I would say that their involvement and their commitment was very much equal to ours, if not greater. And I think that that's very encouraging because it means we can work together as partners, to kind of level the playing field and give everybody a chance. And it was very, very warm and friendly for us, and I think it was wonderful for them as well.
Larry, I was going to mention about the giving of hope. What was your reaction? How can we make this bigger, better, more productive?
I think probably the most important thing is that this is truly a gift from the heart. And when you just stop for a moment and think, most of the people that will watch this probably drove a car, walked in under their own power and took a seat. These are people that have never had that opportunity. You just cannot adequately describe the feeling that comes over you when you see this individual move for the first time in their entire life, that they're now a part of society. They're not restricted again. They can actually go out and help find the food, because that's what these people do. They spend their life working as a team in each of these little families to go out and get the firewood and the water and the corn maize just to have a meal. And 2 hours later, they start the process again, and that person who cannot participate is not going to be the one that eats that day. They're going to be put off to the next time around.
Wow, what a gift. What
a
gift.
gift.
Yeah. It reminds me of all the great things that we do, and they always say you get a lot more when you give, you receive so much more. I will like to come back in a minute, but first of all, I'd like to share with you a little announcement from Rotary International. Please stay with us.
These are the children who had no chance. They're known as Brazil's street kids. They wander the streets dying by the thousands from drugs, AIDS, and bullets. Most of them have been abandoned, left to survive on their own. These children needed a place to go. I had to do something. So I brought it up at Rotary. People heard about what we were doing and asked how they could help. Together, we raised funds to give them a home and open the school. They're learning a trade. Now hundreds of kids have a family and a future. They're contributing to the community because Rotary believes in making things better for everyone.
Rotary is making a difference right now.
They have hope.
Rotary gives people an opportunity to help.
One thing that makes our day when we're out here on the field is watching Lauren get up to bat. Our daughter loves baseball, and we tried to get her on some teams, and there were some coaches that would include her, but she just never felt right about it. Hitting the ball and then making the other kids wait just wasn't her idea of what baseball was. We thought she would just have to settle for being a fan until Rotary stepped in, and they built this special field. They took an idea of just letting the kids play baseball and made it fit these kids rather than trying to make the kids fit the field. Lauren forgets about what she can't do because they've given her the opportunity to do something that we never thought possible. When these kids get to play ball, their heart is there. They are so excited, and they just get to feel like regular kids. On the phone, I heard her telling her grandmother that she was the luckiest kid in the world.
Rotary gives people an opportunity to help.
Welcome back, and I know with a little time remaining, Larry, tell us, what is this trip going to entail? How many wheelchairs are you thinking you're going to be taking over there at this time?
Well, at this stage of the game, I know that I'm going to be taking over in excess of 1,000 wheelchairs. Just and I may double that before we get all done. We may double that. We will deliver them to specific individuals. We will be delivering to field hospitals. Of the 30-some hospitals that we went to there, we saw a total of 4 wheelchairs. 2 were broken beyond repair. And we have a brand new children's hospital there, the only one in the country, and we'll be delivering some chairs for that facility as well.
And these are all custom made to fit the individual patients.
These are custom made, and they are solid. You can hit on them, beat on them, and they're just going to last and last and last.
Well, you know, I want to thank you, Dick, and also Larry, for taking the time out of your busy schedules. But also, as importantly, I think I want to share that if you have been moved in any way, shape, or form with today's presentation, I really encourage you to get off and make a phone call. Pick up the call and ring up a Rotary Club in your own town. Because, you know, it isn't just for Rotarians. It's for men and women that would like to make a difference. And by becoming a volunteer in Rotary, you may have an opportunity that will change other people's lives, but I know guaranteed it will change your life. We are privileged in this society. We spend more at a movie with our children than most people make in a year of income. And we can share that dream, and $100 here is like the equivalent of like $2,000 or $4,000 in some other part of the world. And it doesn't have to be in Malawi. It can be in Mexico. It can be in any other part of this planet. So if you have been moved, please take the time, make a call to your own Rotary Club. The numbers will be listed at the end of the show. And I thank you so much, both you and Larry and Dick, for being here today. And I hope that you've enjoyed this show and you'll come back and watch some more Rotary in Action. Thanks very much. Have a great day.